Right now, John Keim, ESPN, NFL Nation, the Redskins coming to town, John, and it seems that a lot of people are not giving the Redskins a whole heck of a lot of love. Is there good reason for that, or is there some sort of secret sauce that we might find on Sunday with this team?
Oh, I think you can look at this team and see all the question marks they have. Case Keenum starting at quarterback. It's not. I mean, he 2 years ago had a really good year with Minnesota, surrounded by a lot of talent. Last year not as good a year, so there's questions about him. You have Trent Williams missing, so you have Donald Penn and Eric Flowers at the left side of the offensive line. You have one receiver who has played more than 3 games in the NFL. Questions about Jordan Reed and his availability. So I think you add all that up, and it's natural to have. It leads to a line of 9 or 10. I mean, that's what it leads to. Now, listen, any team in the NFL can win a game, and I think I can paint a scenario where they win this game. But you go into it with all those questions, and that's why you have a lot of people looking at Philadelphia pretty hard if you're doing, if you're into that kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, I know one concern here in Philly is the lack of playing time in the preseason, not because of just not playing. A lot of these guys were hurt. I mean, Fletcher Cox coming off injury, Darby coming off of an injury, Bradham coming off of an injury, McLeod coming off of an injury. Is that an area where Washington is well aware of, that they think that maybe they can kind of, like, I don't want to say sneak attack them, but catch them off guard?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, there's some areas there. You talk about some of those guys in the offensive line, too, and, that's one of the strengths of this team. That is the strength of this team, is that defensive front. So they can easily take advantage of something like that. And if Carson Wentz isn't on his game, then you have maybe you get him in a situation where the pass rush is testing that rustiness, so to speak. But the one thing with Carson Wentz, and I know a big deal was made this season, and my guy up there, Tim McManus, wrote something on this about how he's staying in the pocket more. Bottom line is he can still move. So that helps you shake off some of that rust. And we've seen that against this team, against the Redskins, where he's been able to hurt them with his legs, still throwing the ball, but still hurt him with his legs. So that will help mitigate some of those. But, yeah, I think they definitely feel like there are some things they can take advantage of because of that.
Hey, John, it's Jeff Mosher. As much as I like what Washington has done there with their front seven, I think there's a lot of young talent. I look at the offensive line without Trent Williams there, and it seems like there's no real end in sight to that dispute. And I see Donald Penn and Eric Flowers, and even though it's a team game, I mean, we've seen situations. You go back to when McNabb got sacked 8 times against the Giants on Monday night because Trey Thomas wasn't there. I feel like those 2 guys at the left side of the offensive line have a real ability to kind of corrupt anything Washington would try to do offensively.
And that's why I'm picking the Eagles. Yeah, and Jeff, first of all, it's good to talk to you. Secondly, you're absolutely right. And it's and it's not like Donald Penn can be a serviceable left tackle. He's 36 years old though, and he's only been here for about a month. That's hard. And then Eric Flowers, we all saw what he did at tackle, but he's now playing left guard, and he's only been playing left guard for less than a month. So that's difficult. He's transitioning there. Now, his size can help them, and Donald Penn can be, again, he's played that spot. He's been capable at that spot. But when you're playing together like that for the first time against this kind of a front, I think it's difficult. So I think a big key there is, when with the protection calls on that side, and then also on the stunts. I think that's one of the areas where Flowers has had some trouble with, is reacting to those stunts. So what do they do with that? I think that's one thing I'm going to be watching. But it's definitely – because here's the other thing. The Redskins have a pretty good quick passing game, and they like what they have in Darius Geis at running back. But if you can put Case Keenum in a situation where he's got to drop back and pressure him a little bit, he will run up into pressure sometimes, and that he will force some mistakes, as Eagles fans saw in that championship game a couple years ago.
I think, John, Chris Thompson could be an underrated kind of role player for Washington. And he shouldn't be underrated for down there. I mean, obviously he's been very good in his job. But with the Eagles having their injuries at linebacker and probably going to be in a lot of sub packages, I would think that Gruden looks to get Thompson on the field, maybe more so than normal, just to create some bad matchups there.
I think definitely he's hurt them in the past. And I think they're going to – let me say this. Both he and Jordan Reed, and then Jordan Reed has a concussion. My gut is that he'll play. But those two looked really good this summer. And if those two are healthy, it changes the perception of this offense. Just because you have two guys who can win one-on-one matchups, and you don't have a lot of guys who have proven they can do that in this offense. And Thompson is clearly one of them. And it's not just that he's a good receiver. A couple of years ago, when he really kind of took off, he worked a lot with the receivers and the receivers coach just at improving his route running, and you could see that in games. So, he's a guy every year who has learned and learned and learned, and it keeps adding to his game. And, yes, I think he can be a dangerous player Sunday because of that. And I think Jordan Reed as well. So those two their passing game really revolves around Jordan Reed, and then, it's the slot receiver Trey Quinn, and then Chris Thompson, definitely.
Hey, John, it's Ryan here, and just staying with the offensive side of things regarding Washington. Talk about Case Keenum and how he's looked and expectations going into this season, because there's mixed reviews. It's like the jury's still out on Case Keenum, at least a lot of people up here in Philadelphia. So what are your expectations for him, and how do they really set him up for success and have success at least this game on Sunday in Philadelphia?
Yeah, well, the jury's still out. How's that? He's what you heard is correct. Mixed results. He's learning this. He's clearly in a new offense, in his third offense in 3 years. That's never easy. Then you're put in a situation where you don't have any, their most proven receiver is Paul Richardson, who has 115 career catches. And Paul Richardson has some good speed. He can hurt teams, but we're not talking somebody who's been like this year in, year out Pro Bowl type player. I like some of what they have at receiver. They're young, but so you don't know what they're going to do, but there's that word potential. That all doesn't help Case Keenum. I think that's where Jordan Reed and Chris Thompson have to be. The couple things with Keenum, there are times in the preseason where in practice you definitely saw, okay, he's a guy still kind of learning things. But what you do see is a guy who has a lot of confidence, and some of that stuff rubs off on his teammates. And, what you saw last year with Alex Smith, we can all look at Alex Smith's numbers and say that he wasn't great. Now, he didn't turn it over, but he wasn't great. Just look at the passing numbers. Except that the impact he had on the team it's still something that I was talking to guys about this week. One player was telling me, we need a guy who can be like Alex Smith was last year, where you just feel good with him on the field. So I don't know that Case Keenum can get to that point, but he plays with a confidence that I think guys like. But it's not like we saw him just slinging the ball around and you say, oh, he looks great, he really won the job. He won the job because Colt McCoy is still out strengthening his leg, and because Dwayne Haskins just isn't ready. That's why Keenum has a job. He will make mistakes, or they know that the potential for mistakes is there with him. They're just hoping that he can lessen those and learn to not force things and not to stay with plays too long.
So, John, do you have a daily Ohio State chat? And for those who don't know, John's a big Ohio State guy. With Dwayne Haskins, do you idle up to him every day, once in a while, and talk about what's going on with the Buckeyes?
Come on, not every day. It's just every other day.
Just every other day. Okay. Well, seriously though, with Dwayne,
I do.
How have you seen his development?
Yeah, his development. And first of all, yes, I do ask that. And the one thing, listen, you appreciate this because you know how this is. The one thing I asked Terry McLaurin is, what the hell happened against Iowa and Purdue? That's still something that anybody who's an Ohio State fan, you can't figure out those games. But anyway, as far as Haskins goes, his development, he has steadily progressed. They knew it was going to take a while. They still feel it's going to take a while. They feel like there's a package of plays that he could go in and run, but he's not ready for the entire breadth of everything. And I think part of it is he's inexperienced, only 14 starts in college, and he's a pocket passer. So there's a lot of things that you have to master if you're going to be a pocket passer in this league, and you're not going to scare teams with your legs. So he's got to learn a lot more, and he knows that. So they're doing a lot of extra things with him. In training camp, for example, there were times where little things. He'd stand outside the huddle when Colt McCoy or Keenum would call plays in the huddle to hear how they called it and how relaxed they sound when they did it, how they would look at teammates when they call out the protection and look into linemen, calling out the routes, looking at the receivers, little things like that he didn't have to do in college. And then he would meet with the coaches before meetings in the morning and after meetings at night. He's still doing a lot of that. And, he'll work with an offensive assistant off to the side at times during practice on various things. So they're working hard to develop him because right now he's their number 2 quarterback. So, you see, you saw the arm talent at times this summer. And then you saw throws that you're like, okay, that throw you just can't make. Or, you've got to be better with this read, this throw, this protection. But you definitely saw that arm talent as well.
John Keim covers the Redskins and, of course, ESPN NFL Nation, and they are in town this weekend to kick off the season. We'll see how it goes. The Eagles a big favorite, but a lot of questions on with injuries. We'll see how it works out. And, of course, the situations at quarterback. You got Keenum for the Redskins, and we'll see how their offense looks. We know they got some good defensive talent, but very intrigued by that. John, we appreciate the time.
Hey, thanks for having me on, guys.